So say for example for my shapes, I've got a large shape, curved, straight, or that there's a particular shape in each box. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So my name is Bernie, and if this is your first time on my channel, this is Bernie's Life, and where I basically do videos on general lifestyle, you know, a few things about motivation and some medicine videos. So just talk you guys through how to like apply for medical school, my journey through medical school, and this video is going to be one of those ones about medical school or just medicine application basically. So I'd previously done a Ukcat video which you guys absolutely loved. It was my 3 top Ukcat tips, and you guys loved it. However, a lot of people were asking me questions, like sending me questions about the specific sections, how to like work them, because the video was basically just a general guidance on how to do the Ukcat, how to prepare for it, what to do on the day, resources to use. So I did have a few questions about the specific sections, and what I'd been doing in that time was actually sending answers to people directly, like just sending people my tips. So I just thought I'd do this video which you guys can always just refer to rather than always having to wait for me to answer them basically. So actually, before I move on to talk about the different sections, what I would do is to also mention a resource that I failed to mention in my previous video. If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to link it somewhere up here. It's a really good video if I do say so myself. But one resource I failed to mention, which I wasn't aware of at the time, is Medicblog or Ukcat blog, and it's basically a free self-study site where you can get loads of different advice, tips and tricks on the Ukcat, and it's very specific and short. So say for example, there's specific examples on how to use the calculator for your quantitative reasoning, how to read really quickly, how to do a test on the computer. There's just different specific things, and I think that would be really useful rather than watching a whole Ukcat video. If you're someone that just had a specific question, it's a really good blog for that. And also they've also got a Facebook group where you can ask questions from current medical students, so like myself, or other medical school applicant students. So it's just a site where you guys can just discuss, you know, how life is going with the Ukcat, and I think that would be really a really good resource for you guys. Another thing is that the owner of the blog does do free giveaways or just giveaways, where basically one of them could be winning a one-to-one consultation for the summer on how to work your Ukcat, or personal statement. So I think it's really useful, and I mentioned it's free as well, so I would definitely recommend you guys jump in it. So we're just going to move on now to talk about the specific sections and my particular advice for each one of them, my little tips and tricks of what I did, and things I wish I didn't do, what I've learned from it. And yeah, I just hope it helps you guys. Just in case anyone was wondering, I did do my Ukcat about 4 years ago now. I think it was 2015 I did my Ukcat, and I am currently in my 4th year of medical school. I know that the years don't correlate, right? It's just medical school timetable is very crazy. I think I was trying to find my little Ukcat slip, you know, the letter you get when you've done the test, but I couldn't. I swear I brought it with me to Aberdeen when I was coming from London. I can't find it anywhere, but I got 695, which was really annoying because I was so close to the 700 for the graduate entry medicine. But you know what, it worked out fine anyway. Before we actually do talk about the specific section, if you're someone that you've never heard of a Ukcat before, but you've been told that you need to do a Ukcat, basically a Ukcat is an entrance examination for both medical student and dentistry. And it's just a way to, I don't know, I feel like it's a way to sieve out students basically. But it's also, they say it's a way to test your knowledge on how to be a better doctor, I guess, or a better dentist. But yeah, the Ukcat is an aptitude test where you do online. There's about 5 sections in it, which contains quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and various other sections, which I'll be going through. The registration has actually opened. It opened at the beginning of this month. Well, when you guys will be watching it, opened 1st of May. So it is still open now, and people can start taking the test from July the 1st, and it runs all the way to September. Now, one thing to note is I wouldn't advise leaving it too long, and another thing is the longer you leave it, or the later you leave it rather, the more expensive it is. In the UK it cost about, I think as at when I did it, it cost about £60 if I'm not mistaken when you do it earlier on. And then if you do it later on, that's towards September, it's about 80 something pounds. It will be more expensive if you have to do the UK CAT outside the EU, so it is more expensive, so that's something to note. But yeah, definitely do try to do the test as soon as possible, but also give yourself time to make sure that you're ready for it, because you want to enjoy your summer as well. So yeah, we're just going to move on now to talk about the specific sections. The first section we're going to talk about is verbal reasoning, just because it's usually the first one in the UK CAT test. And guys, I kid you not, verbal reasoning was my worst section. Even in during my practice time and during the actual UK CAT, it was still the hardest and worst section. But one thing I'll definitely advise is to practice speed reading. This is the only thing I personally feel like you can do for verbal reasoning, just because of the chunk of the amount of stuff paragraph you get in it, and you have to read in such limited time. It's not possible to read the whole thing, so you have to practice speed reading of reading key words and key sentences and in paragraphs that would help you to answer the question. Now, most of the questions are true, false, or can't say. If the question directly correlates to what the paragraph is, it's a yes. If it's a definite opposite, it's a no. If it doesn't tell you exactly, then it's a can't say. Don't go by, sometimes what they even say there might not make sense, what the paragraph says might not make sense, but definitely go by the paragraph. Don't go by common sense or what you've read before or what you've learned. So another tip, as I mentioned, is like the speed reading. One thing you could do is read articles, and this will really be really useful for your interview. When it comes to your interview, if you start reading articles about healthcare in general and try speed reading them, and then maybe like get a little paper and pen and just jot down the key points you've gotten from it, and then maybe go back and read it and see if you were able to get all the points from it. Just practice speed reading. Now when it actually gets to the day of the exam, in the UK CAT exam, what you want to do is, if there's big chunks of paragraphs and you feel like it will take you time to read through it, just skip it, or just flag it rather, and then just go answer other ones, and then you can come back to it. Another thing you could do is, if the question has specific qualitative or quantity kind of things in the question, say for example it has key dates or it has months, things like that, use that as a keyword to search through the paragraph. So what I personally did was spend about a couple seconds just skim reading the paragraph, then I'll go to the actual question and then look at what the question is asking, and then pick keywords there, and then go back and just really look for it really quickly. That worked for me. And what I also did was to, just because you've got 44 questions in 21 minutes, I think it is, that's based on 11 different paragraphs. So for each paragraph there's 4 questions on it, and you've got 21 minutes overall. So what I also did was to split the time and just see what works best for you. The next section is decision making. Now this has actually changed from the time I did the UK CAT test. Because what I did was to actually go back on the UK CAT and see if I was able to do some of the questions, and I noticed that decision making was different. And I'm aware that I think maybe a couple years ago it wasn't included in UK CAT test, so I think that's why it's changed now. But regardless, I had a look through it, and I would say it's kind of similar to the verbal reasoning in a sense that you have to make conclusions of things. So some of them is answering yes or no to a statement. Other ones is actually choosing the correct statement, and others are looking at shapes and making a judgment to see what shape follows next. So I think it's kind of similar to verbal reasoning, but obviously not the same. But at the same time, still take your time, but not too much time, to just look at keywords. That's what will really help you. What I then did as well was to just quickly jot down a few things that can help, because that helps you to just visualize things rather than trying to keep everything in your head, especially when you're really nervous on the day. Next section we're going to talk about is the quantitative reasoning. Now, I feel like anyone that has done GCSE maths is able to do those questions. The problem is just because of the timing, you're actually able to do the questions. It's just having to do them really quick and then choosing questions that you want, choosing your time appropriately. Basically, there's certain questions that will be very long and require you to do 3 or 4 multiple steps on getting an answer. Those kind of questions, I'd advise you to just skip them and then come back to them later. They're the same mark, you get the same point for other easier questions that is just reading off a graph or just calculating one thing. So I would advise you definitely do those ones first, the easier ones first, and then come back to the more difficult ones. Another thing you need to do is practice how to use a calculator. It can get a bit flimsy having to click on the calculator on the screen and using your mouse. So I would definitely advise that you practice using the calculator because you're definitely going to need it. Another thing you can do for the quantitative reasoning is to also make a list of the quite common equations that you usually come across that you would need. And I would advise that you actually write it down quickly. The 1 minute you get after your decision making to the quantitative reasoning, just quickly jot down the equations so that you can see them, and rather than panicking, just sets you in pace from the decision making back to the quantitative reasoning. So that's something you can do, to just jot them down. You guys will be glad to know that the actual exam, the quantitative reasoning, is a lot easier. I couldn't believe it when I went into the exam. I mean, a lot of people had said it before, but it was just like, wow, oh, this is easier. So if you are practicing the quantitative reasoning and you're finding it quite hard, I would say it's nothing to stress about. Just spend time identifying the questions you have a problem with, the questions that you find hard, and each time you get a question wrong, go back and find out why you got it wrong, so that you can have in your judgment and in your mind, even when you have to guess certain questions, you'd have a better judgment because you know how to work your way through them. So just check each question when you get them wrong, or even the ones you get right. Just check if you got them right for the right reasons, basically. And also, don't spend too much time on your strengths. So there will be certain question types that you're really good at, say percentages or reading from a graph. If you're really good at that, that's fine. Spend more time on your weaknesses, because then you can able to develop your skills rather than just sticking to what you know. So it's just working your way through the difficult ones and just seeing how to work them better. I would advise that you definitely try to get your head around it first, and then then practice on your timekeeping with the question. Abstract reasoning is my absolute favorite, just because I hated it at first, completely hated it, because I did not know how to work through it. But just spending more time, I was able to then understand it. So I did, and that was one of the most common questions I got from people, how to work their way through abstract reasoning. Again, I had a lot of notes on this, but somehow I've misplaced it. I'll try to find it, but I quickly jotted down a few things just before I did this video, and I've just got on the paper. I don't know if you guys can see it. I know it looks terrible, but one of the most important things you want to use for your abstract reasoning is scans. So it's just shapes, color, arrangement, number, and then the size. And then based on each of those, there's little subsections. So say for example for my shapes, I've got a large shape, curved, straight, or that there's a particular shape in each box. Or for example the numbers, there's odd numbers, even numbers, numbers of shapes in each box, numbers of characteristics of shapes. So there's different points that you can work through, and the way I was able to get this was just by doing different questions. And there's honestly so many questions, or so many shapes, or so many ideas they've got. If you're able to do as much as you can, I promise you're going to come across almost everything, if not everything. And you would then get quicker, and things will make more sense, because you could just look at them and just know that I've seen this before and I know this, but just still spend time to just make sure. One quick easy tip is to always look at the simplest box. The simplest box is usually very true of the characteristics of a set. So if a box has simply a square, a circle, look at that and then use that to base of all the different shapes in the set, and you will definitely find similarities and something among them. Similarities in each set is always based on a positive rule rather than a negative rule. So you cannot say there's sometimes a triangle with a circle, or there's sometimes a triangle can have two sides. No, it has to be a positive rule. So it's either there's always a triangle on the left hand corner, or there's always a circle with a triangle. It's always a positive rule. Another thing I actually found is when a test shape matches a set, say set A, directly, it's actually usually set B or neither, because I haven't really worked my way to understand why, but most of the questions I've done when I was doing my Ukcat and when I did it just before this video, the ones that match directly are usually neither or the other set. If all boxes in both sets have the same shape, like similar shape, just check for the patterns in which they're arranged. So each set can, you know, always have like a circle and a triangle or a line. Just check the arrangement. It might be that in set A, the circle always comes before the triangle, and in set B, it's the opposite way round. So just check for the arrangement and pattern. Last section is your situational judgment. Now, this one is quite different from other ones in the sense that there isn't a particular score of from 300, because you get graded from 300 to 900 in each section. But this one is different in the sense that you get either band 1, 2, 3 or 4, with 1 being the highest band you can get. When I was practicing, I kept getting band 2, but in my actual Ukcat results, I got band 1. And I think what helped me was using the GMC good medical practice. Duties of a doctor are usually what follows or corresponds with the situational judgment. So it tells you, for example, you must always maintain patient confidentiality, or you must always maintain your scope of practice. So things like that will help in patient safety is your number one. So those things, if you have that and you've made a note of it, and whenever you come across the scenarios, you're able to work your way through them better, because you can refer to the duties of a doctor basically. So that's one really useful tip. So here's the good medical practice. I got this actually in medical school, and there's also this one for medical student, and this has the duties of a doctor. I just got it on this side, but it's honestly, you can just get it online. It's an online resource, so just go on the GMC website and just search for the duties of a doctor. One of the problems I faced, or one of the things I found more difficult, was you definitely know when something is appropriate or not appropriate, but it's just having to find the level between them, whether it's very appropriate or, you know, not very appropriate basically. So it's having to find the balance between it, and if you honestly use the duties of a doctor, it helps you to like work your way through. So I hope you guys have found this video useful on the different tips for each section. And I mean, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to, you know, message me on my, I don't know, my social media, or just leave a question in the comment section below if you want any, you know, advice on practicing or what resource to use. Like I mentioned, I've done a video on that before. But also, please do check out the Medicblog or the Ukcat blog. I will leave it in the description box below, so you guys can check it out, as well as their Facebook group. Good luck practicing, and I'm sure you guys will be absolutely fine and smash it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you're not subscribed, before I go, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any videos from me. I do try to do a lot of videos about, you know, application to medical school and my journey through medical school, so it might help you or motivate you. So yeah, just make sure you subscribe and then hit the notification box below. Please leave a comment if this is your first time on my channel, and just say hi, so you know we can get to know each other. And follow me on my socials as well if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to. And I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.